live? The broadcast
It
is
looks
live.
like it.
Yep, we are. Not up your page yet, but so we'll just give it.
Right. Why not?
We'll see on. If anybody's watching us, excuse us. No, can't see it up
YouTube.
on the
It's on
page.
YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's supposed to be on Facebook as well.
Have you got your YouTube link there?
I can get it up.
I'm not going to start just now, just in case there's nobody in.
Yeah.
So if you you've only got one Facebook page, haven't you? Is it? Hold on.
Oh, it's not on. It's not on the Sturmtaucher page, is it?
No, that's what I was just double checking there. No. I wonder if you've not set it to go.
It's on. It's on. It's on.
Is it on?
I think so. Well, there's something on it. No. No sound on it.
I can't see it on your Facebook.
It's below the first page. It's below the pinned. Sorry, folks, we're having a little technical issue. It's delayed as well.
I can't even see it. If anybody's watching, can you put a wee comment up and see if it comes up on the comment box so we know if anybody's there? Although
you should get rid of the...
technically, if you've got it on YouTube, then you can share that later. You just don't get the live. See if anybody's messaged.
It's definitely on the YouTube channel, but it's not live. There's a slight delay.
It usually does have a slight delay on YouTube, though.
Yeah. What we'll do is, have we had any comments yet now? Sorry about it, folks. If you're listening to this, we're having a bit of a glitch here because we can't seem to get it up on Facebook. It's definitely on my Facebook page. I think we're okay.
Okay.
Okay. We might as well start.
Yeah, we'll start and see what's happening. Okay. Welcome, everyone. And welcome to lunch night for Alan Jones and Flight of the Shearwater. And it doesn't seem that long ago we were here talking about the Gathering Storm, Alan. So I wonder if everybody thinks you've actually wrote that book in such a short period. If you've wrote like 800 pages in like a month. But that would be a lie because you've been reading them. You've been writing them for a long, long time. So anyway, so second in the trilogy, the Gathering Storm laid the foundations for us. So could you tell us a wee bit about where we are in Flight of the Shearwater?
So at the end of the Gathering Storm, and if anyone hasn't read it yet, then there's going to be a little bit of a spoiler, so you might want to close your ears. The general's been trying to get his Jewish staff out of Germany because he knows what's coming, or he's got a good idea what's coming. And so he thought he succeeded in getting them out to Denmark. But on the very day they tried to get to Denmark, Germany invades Denmark and Norway. And they are turned back at the border. So they're back where they started. And the second book just really goes on from there, saying, what he does to try and get them out, what they do to try and get out, and what effect the increasingly horrible things that are happening around them is having on both families. A bit more sailing in this one. I don't want to give any more away because that would be, again, giving spoilers away. But yes, so just really taking both families forward in their story.
Right, okay.
And this book only lasts a year, and it takes you up to 1941, when the Germans have invaded Russia.
Right, okay. Okay, are you going to give us a short reading?
Yes, I'm going to read first from chapter 45 of Flight of the Shearwater, where Franz and Johann, General Eric Kastner's sons, are speaking together in their barracks near Bergen in Norway, a year after the German invasion of Scandinavia. Franz looked on, knowing what his brother was going through. Johann sat in his bunk, his head in his hands. "You were right," he said. Franz sat down beside him. He put his arm around his shoulder. "I felt like this the first time as well." "It's not the first time," Johann said, his voice bitter. "I just thought they were isolated incidents, the unfortunate consequences of war. That it was human nature for men to act out of character now and then." He looked up at Franz, his eyes full of horror. "This was premeditated," he said, "and part of some grand plan. I know that now." Johann's unit had been ordered to back up a combined SS and Norwegian action, while he smoked out a group of alleged partisans from a village not far from Bergen. "These were no partisans," he said. "Not a gun or other weapon between them, unless you counted a fishing knife. And they were all Jews. I heard them praying, like Joseph and Miriam do. They shot them all, the women and children too." Franz gripped the back of his brother's shoulders and gently shook him. "It's not your fault. There was nothing you could have done." "Yes, there was, but we didn't lift a finger to stop it. Yes, a few of the lads brought up their breakfast afterwards. We were all disgusted, but we just stood there watching while they massacred whole families." The second passage I'd like to read you is from a little further on in the book. Ruth Nussbaum, as an old woman, is being interviewed in 2001 about the events of 60 years before. 10th of August 2001, Malden, England. Ruth sighed. She took off her glasses and started out of the window. When she spoke, I could see that she was back on board, the smell of sea in her nostrils. "Der Sturmtaucher," she said. "The Shearwater. It sounds better in English than it does in German. There were times I hated the sight of her, when the wind and the cold soaked into my bones, or I leaned over the side, retching until my stomach ached, or I lay in the damp coffin of a bilge. I detested everything about her." She wasn't a beautiful boat like one of these elegant racing yachts. She was businesslike, but in the end, as much as I hated her, I grew to love her. That's it.
Oh,
There is a message. I don't think people are getting in.
are they not? Are they getting in on YouTube? I can't get signed into my account to see.
Don't know.
Because if it's on live on YouTube, people can leave messages in there.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is I'll point them to YouTube. Don't know why it's not working on Facebook. It worked last time, fine.
I know.
Okay. Let's have a look.
You can hear us, guys. We're having technical difficulties.
I will post on my Facebook page.
And if I put my YouTube up on my computer, I get because there's a wee delay on it, I'm getting it back in my ear, so. Oh. A couple of folk are saying they can't get in. I'm just saying, Alan.
We have to start again, Sean.
Yeah? Okay. You want to end this broadcast and restart it and ensure that you are linked into Facebook?
Well, it says I'm linked in. It's ticked. Facebook's ticked. It's definitely on YouTube. I've seen it on YouTube.
Hold on.
I can post on my Facebook page for people to go to YouTube and we can start again.
Yeah, post your link to YouTube on your Facebook page at the moment, because a couple of people are saying. Don't you love online stuff?
Yes, absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
It says it's on my on my page. It's live. I've got it on my page live. I don't really understand.
I know. I don't know why people aren't seeing that. I'm just going to put that link in the comments that people are trying to get in as well.
Yeah.
We can start again. That's fine.
We'll
How
find
very
out.
strange.
Yeah.
So you can
Right.
definitely see it on your Facebook page.
I can see it on my Facebook page. Yeah.
It could just be Facebook playing up, Alan.
Yeah, it has been dodgy recently, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So if
I'm just going to reply to Anne.
the joys with technology. Facebook was doing really funny things for the last few days, but I thought they'd fixed it.
Oh, it's all COVID and Brexit, isn't it? Oh, brilliant. Anne can see us both now. So,
Okay.
So I think when anybody comments on YouTube, the comments will come up here as well. So we'll give folk a couple of minutes. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for alerting us to the problem. And Joe Ammett also alerted us to the problem as well. So if anyone else is trying to get on and has been having difficulty, I do apologise. It was Mr. Facebook, honest.
It was indeed.
That's me. I'm going to try and get rid of the volume on. So I've got Facebook up now, YouTube up now.
Okay.
Just give everyone a couple of minutes to come over from
Yeah,
Facebook.
I'm just going to post this YouTube link on my page as well. It would happen in a night when neither of us are drinking as well, yeah?
I know.
If we were drinking, it wouldn't matter.
There's two.
Hi, Anne. I can't reply to any of the comments, so I'll just read them as they come in. Definitely not you being useless, Anne. I was blaming Alan, actually. I was blaming him for not having signed into Facebook, but I think we're just having a wee bit of technical issues. Right, Sharon Evans is watching on YouTube. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Anne. Hi, anybody else that's over on YouTube watching us. Right, we've actually done the launch and we've had all the questions. Alan's done all the readings. It's been lovely talking to you guys. So good night from us. Just kidding. We're going to start all over again. And hopefully there are some people here. But the good thing with YouTube, it will be up there for anybody to see at any time. So happy publication day, Alan, for Flight of the Shearwater, which has come hot in the heels of the Gathering Storm. It feels like we were only here a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, launching the first in the trilogy. Gathering Storm laid a wee bit of the foundations, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about where we're at now in Flight of the Shearwater.
So, if anyone hasn't read The Gathering Storm, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but you'd maybe better put your hands over your ears for this next little tiny bit. At the end of The Gathering Storm, the general was trying to get his Jewish staff, the Nussbaums, out of Germany, and he thought he'd succeeded in getting them to Denmark, where he thought they'd be safe. But it turns out that on the very day they tried to get to Denmark, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway. And what happened was they get turned back at the border and they turned back up at the house. The book really then goes on to just show what happens to the families, the two families, as the Nazis' evil gets worse and worse and worse, and the general tries to get these staff out, and they make their own efforts to get out as well. And that basically it takes place over a year until roughly the Germans are well through their invasion of Russia, and the whole of Europe is dominated by the Germans. They've taken over every bit of Europe, and it's more and more difficult for the Nussbaums to get out. And that's where it gets to at the end of the Flight of the Shearwater.
Okay. Right, the format of tonight is before we launch into my grilling of Alan, he's going to give us a short reading. But obviously, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, if this is up on Facebook, who knows what Facebook is doing these days, but you can leave your questions in the comments and they magically appear in a little box at the side of us. So I'll be keeping an eye on any questions that come through, and I'll be putting them to Alan later. So please ask lots of questions. Ask him lots of difficult questions. Let's not give him an easy ride tonight. We've already had the technical difficulties, so get those difficult questions in there for Alan, because mine aren't going to be that taxing for him. So before we go into the questions, Alan, give us a reading from the book.
Well, there's two short readings I'd like to read you. The first one is from around about chapter 45 of Flight of the Shearwater, and it's where Franz and Johann, the General Eric Kastner's sons, who are both serving officers in the German army, are speaking together in their barracks near Bergen in Norway, a year after the German invasion of Scandinavia. Franz looked on, knowing what his brother was going through. Johann sat on his bunk, his head in his hands. "You were right," he said. Franz sat down beside him. He put his arms around his shoulder. "I felt like this the first time as well." "It's not the first time," Johann said, his voice bitter. "I just thought they were isolated incidents, the unfortunate consequences of war, that it was human nature for men to act out of character now and then." He looked up at Franz, his eyes full of horror. "This was premeditated," he said, "and part of some grand plan. I know that now." Johann's unit had been ordered to back up a combined SS and Norwegian action while they smoked out a group of alleged partisans from a village not far from Bergen. "These were no partisans," he said. "Not a gun or other weapon between them, unless you counted a fishing knife. And they were all Jews. I heard them praying, like Yosef and Miriam do. They shot them all, the women and children too." Franz gripped the back of his brother's shoulders and gently shook him. "It's not your fault. There was nothing you could have done." "Yes, there was, but we didn't lift a finger to stop it. Yes, a few of the lads brought their breakfast afterwards. We were all disgusted, but we stood there watching while they massacred whole families." The second passage I'd like to read you is a little further on the book, and Ruth Nussbaum, now an old woman, is being interviewed in 2001 about the events of 60 years before. 10th of August 2001, Malden, England. Ruth sighed. She took off her glasses and stared out of the window. When she spoke, I could see that she was back on board, the smell of the sea in her nostrils. "Der Sturmtaucher," she said. "The Shearwater. It sounds better in English than it does in German." There were times I hated the sight of her. When the wind and the cold soaked into my bones, or I leaned over the side, retching until my stomach ached, or I lay in that damp coffin of the bilge, I detested everything about her. She wasn't a beautiful boat like one of these elegant racing yachts. She was businesslike, but in the end, as much as I hated her, I grew to love her. That's it.
Excellent. Alan, you know that after the launch of The Gathering Storm, I'd already bought your book, and you said to me, because you know that how much I love my crime fiction, my psychological thrillers, you always said you didn't expect me to read it. I've been absolutely blown away by all the reviews and the feedback about your book. So after your launch, I started reading, and I finished an 800-page book in less than a week. And I did message you to say that every single day while I was reading that book, and even beyond, I couldn't stop thinking about the characters. I found myself at work thinking about their lives, thinking about the horrors that they were going through, and you know, some of the things that you wrote about. How connected did you through this process, and do you feel to those characters?
The characters, certainly while I was writing the book, and definitely now, they became real people to me, to be honest. I thought about them day and night. In fact, I mean, I've always been an avid reader, but I got about probably a third of the way through writing it, and I couldn't even read, because every waking moment I was just thinking about these people, and it's just invaded my head, really. And I find it sometimes they wrote their own story because they just were so real to me. I just had to imagine them in a situation, and what they said and what they did just seemed to come because I could see the people in my mind. They were real to me. Yeah. And emotionally, it was sometimes even the research, when I was doing the research and I was reading all these stories of survivors and victims, testaments that turned up, little scraps of paper and hidden in walls, it turned up and smuggled out of camps, or just stories of the absolute horrors. I mean, I could sometimes I was reading it and you were reading it through tears were just blinding you, because it was just, you just can't imagine what it'd be like, to go through something like that. And so it really was emotionally hard to write. And I know a few reviewers have said it's in places the books are hard to read, especially for people who've maybe had family or some, they've gone through this. So yes, definitely a big emotional sort of attachment to the characters and the story.
I think people who are avid readers get that whole connecting with characters. Where you get so engaged in a story that you're thinking about the characters. But I think with this series, I think we know what you've written is fiction, but we also know that it's sadly based on reality. And I think that's where, I certainly had to put the book down at points and just absorb what I'd read. And as I was reading it, I wanted to think this is made up. I wanted to think, oh, there's going to be a happy ending. When you're reading a really, traumatic fiction book, you're always reading it thinking, right, there's going to be, a happy ending. There's going to be a happy outcome here. And it was particularly hard reading it, knowing the reality of the situation. So I think it's had a massive emotional impact on me as a reader, and I know from the feedback you've been getting from everybody else. And you talked to there a wee bit about the emotional impact of actually writing the book. That must have been really draining throughout that process. Because how long have you been working on the trilogy?
So it was about 5 years, over 5 years now, and yeah, it was at times, but also I was driven to tell the story because I just felt there was bits of it where, I'm not saying it's never been told before, but as a whole, from start to finish, from 1933, when everything looked pretty hunky-dory and Adolf Hitler and his henchmen came to power, for a while, Germany actually looked a lot better place. And even a lot of Jews supported him because he was getting rid of unemployment. He was cutting down on basically the Germany after the First World War was really quite a sort of forward-looking place with, clubs. Art was very, sort of modern. There was a big gay scene in Weimar, Germany, and a lot of people really thought it had gone too far, didn't like it. And when Adolf Hitler came down and clamped him down and all that, a lot of people supported him. A lot of people, including, some of the Jewish community who didn't know what was coming. So it was,
and I think that that was what really struck me. Just being able to see how how his ideology sort of seeped through the country, how people were taken in by this. That here was somebody, as you say, dealing with unemployment, clamping down on the aspects of life that people thought were perhaps too progressive. And you could almost see how easily that grew into what it was.
It was so insidious. It was so insidious. I mean, it was just little drip, 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 drip. They had a lot of patience, and they just it was like a slow strangulation. It was, and the more you read about it, that actually, it's just so hard to believe, that it happened, that humans could do that to each other.
You talked about being driven to write this story. At any point, did you worry about writing the story?
Yeah, a lot. I did, and there's been a little bit of people writing about the Holocaust, um, not doing it justice, and I was very worried. And then Madeline read the book, Madeline Black, and her father was a Holocaust survivor, and she read the book, and she said, "No, you're along the right track with it," and that did. I must admit that was a settle my nerves because I was nervous about it. You know, I went, how are people of Jewish faith going to, look at me, non-Jewish, writing about, the suffering of their people. And since then, there's been a number of other people who've also commented, and it's been, in fact, quite heartwarming to, get sort of people, messaging me and saying that I'm glad you told our story. So yes, but it was a worry for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's no denying it's raw, and it's raw and it's brutal in places, but there's also I'm not Jewish and I've not been affected by that, but I was really struck by the sensitivity that was there as well, alongside that. So yeah,
Well, thanks, yeah.
okay. When given that you're perhaps a little bit worried about tackling this subject, and putting that book out there, the reviews that you've had so far have been out of this world. Did you expect that? Did you expect that you were going to get
No,
such
I mean,
positive feedback?
I had some good response. I had about 35 beta readers at various stages of the book, and the response from them was great. It was fantastic. They said it was fantastic, but honestly, I didn't know what it was going to be like when it went out, to book bloggers and readers in general. And I've been blown away by the reviews. To be honest, they've been, just fantastic, and it kind of makes 5 years writing really sort of, you think, oh, it's been absolutely worthwhile when you get feedback
Yeah.
that people have been so affected by it. Then it's really why you write. To be honest, it's to get a response from readers who say they've really sort of had an emotional attachment to the characters in the book.
Yeah. Anne Miller's just asked a really interesting question there about research. So we talked a wee bit the last time, for the launch of the Gathering Storm, about research, and she's asking, did you do any different research for this book, or did you? I'm always fascinated by your research process, because you know you showed me some of it and I was just like blown away. I would never have the patience to do the amount of research that you've done. But did you do all your research for the trilogy in one before you started reading, or did you research book one and then go on and do some more for book two?
No, the basic research was done before it started the trilogy.
Right. Okay.
So there was the bare bones of it, but a lot of the detail was researched as I went through each book. So, and it really, if you're writing historical fiction and you're writing, sort of trying to write accurate historical fiction, every paragraph, every line needs a little bit of micro research. It might be something stupid like, when did people first have fridges?
Yeah.
What kind of typewriters did they have? What sort of, it can be silly little things, what
Even
medicines
things
were
like the
available.
type, yeah, the type of language they use. How people, how people spoke at the time.
So yeah, so
Oh, Alan's frozen. I'm sure he'll come back to us.
having a little bit of connection problem with
Yeah,
Sharon
that's
just now.
fine. I think you're coming back. You're pixelating, which usually means you're returning. It's like something out of Doctor Who when that
Yeah,
happens.
I just lost you there for.
Yeah, I lost you as well. Just
Hold on a
checking my
second. I'm
connection.
just going to see if anyone else is using the internet in my house.
I'm just double checking my connection. If folk can hear
Can
me,
you hear me now,
Alan's
Sharon?
just. I can hear you. Can you hear me? I don't think Alan can hear me. I think Alan is seeing me froze on the screen and I'm seeing him frozen on the screen. So we're going to communicate. Alan, I can see you moving now. Can you see me?
Yeah, I think we lost each other for a minute there.
Yeah, I think we're back.
It's going to be an evening of glitches, I think.
Yes, but that's okay. That happens to the best of people. So
yep.
So we were talking about the research, and you were talking about how every line, every paragraph needs, that level of research, just in terms of things like foods, language, appliances that were available. And I just lost my train of thought there. In terms of the research, then, did you start off with the sort of almost the basic concept of the story and build your research round that, or had you started researching and that sort of brought out the story for you?
There was a bit of both. I had basically, and to be honest, book 2 was the story I originally had in mind. And the more I researched, the more I realised there was a backstory to it. And that became book 1. And then obviously there was an ongoing story after book 2, and that became book 3. It was almost like that. So in my mind, the first idea was roughly what happens in book 2. And then I expanded it both ways because the research was it was so impelling that I just thought, I've got to do this, even though I knew it was going to be a horrifically big book, or books, and also it was going to take me a long time to write.
Yeah, it did. And actually quite a lot, right?
Yes, you did.
I think we all did. When's about coming? Joe says, I'm still reading The Gathering Storm. Phenomenal research and characters. Absolutely, Joe. Completely agree.
Thank you, Joe. Yes.
And the good news is Alan is talking that the paperbacks may be ready for just before Christmas. Am I right?
Yes, so the paperbacks I've been working while I've been waiting for the third book to come back in to get it finalised for an ebook. I've had a bit of time, so I've managed to get a bit of work done on the paperback. So hopefully, instead of January, they should be out hopefully in November sometime. I'm crossing my fingers. Depends what the proofs come back like.
Ideal Christmas presents, folks. I've already decided what my mum's getting for Christmas. Just going back to that research and the story and that drive to do it. When you're talking about a drive to write that story, was there anything in particular that you wanted to achieve in the writing?
Yes. I mean, I just want, obviously, people who write about the Holocaust don't want anyone to ever forget it. So that is the first thing. But I learned so much during the research for the books that I thought there's probably a lot we don't know. That everyone assumes they know the story of the Holocaust to a greater or lesser degree. But in fact, the more research I did, the more I realised how much I hadn't known. And even now, I'm pretty sure I've only scratched the surface. But I just felt as if it was a story that just needed. I just felt it deserved to be told. To try and let people understand maybe a little bit of why it happened. I'm not saying it's a full discussion about why it happened, but it's just asking the questions.
Anne Miller is asking, would you write another book in this genre?
I mean, to be honest, the from the stories I'd read, I mean, you could write 10 books easily with people. You could write 10 true stories, 1,000 true stories, because they are absolutely, some of the stories are absolutely amazing. And it was sometimes hard to leave bits out of the book, but obviously the book is long enough as it is. You just couldn't put in any more. But there's some just amazing stories of courage, of people who'd helped just through purely humanity. They'd taken great risks with their own life and others to help. And there's countless stories about that. So I don't know. I'll not rule it out, but I'll have to see. I need a rest.
You need a rest after 5 years. You retired people get plenty of rest. I just want to say that I've just popped onto Facebook there, and one of my schoolmates, Angie Worley, who now lives in North Carolina, has just commented that she's listening and finding it absolutely fascinating. So, Angie, it's lovely to see you here joining us, Hen. Even though Alan keeps on freezing on me, but there he comes back. Are you losing me or am I losing you? Oh, I love a technical difficulty, so I do. Give me a shout if you're still here. I don't want to refresh my feed in case I lose.
I do apologise. People, we seem to have been having a really bad night for glitches.
Am I back? I've got 3 of you. I've got 2 of you on my screen. One of you's out. Can you hear me, Alan?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it's just a glitchy night, I think.
It's going to be one of these nights, yeah.
Yeah. Just before I think one of us froze, I was just saying somebody I went to school with, Angie Worley, who used to live in Kirkintilloch, now lives in North Carolina, and she's watching all the way from North Carolina and thinks it's fascinating. So there you go. All right, Angie Hen, it's nice to see you. Let's give you a wee shout. She's going through a bit of a bad time just now, so it's nice to see you here watching us, Angie. Yeah, Joe, it's very frustrating when tech interferes, especially when you feel as if you're talking to yourself and don't realise that the other person's actually frozen.
Embarrassing.
I know. I'm like, am I here? Anyway, so I mentioned there a wee bit about your retirement, Alan. How's retiring, writing through the pandemic, how's that sort of impacted? I mean, you must have loads of time. You must have loads of time in your hands now to just sit and chill and look out the window and write.
Yeah, so it's been great from the point of view of publishing the books. I mean, if I hadn't retired, they would have been a year away, because I've been managing to do about 10 to 12 hours a day, whereas beforehand when I was working, I'd still do 5 hours a day, but obviously when you do twice as much, things happen twice as fast, and the editing process has taken a long time. So that's me being retired since last December, and it really did make a vast difference to how quick I get the books out. And it was through.
I've lost you again. Just going to double check my. No, there's nothing wrong with my. Well, they're saying there's nothing wrong with my Wi-Fi. It could mean anything. You're moving. You're back.
Yeah. No, I was saying the pandemic. It probably benefited me because there was less distractions. So there was no travel, there was no event. So, sort of going out, socialising. So basically, you had all the time in the world you wanted to write. And that, so overall, it probably benefited the process. But I did book events and seeing everyone books and so
I know you kind of miss that. It's sort of swings and roundabouts really. You've got that extra time to write, but at the same time you've not got the audience and the sort of networking, catching up with people. Although you did make up for that in Bloody Scotland a couple of weeks ago. Oh, he's going again, Joe. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the blockbuster movie version as well. And I would agree, having that trilogy, published, book 2 published so quickly after book 1 was great, because I get what you mean there. When you're really enjoying a book and it's in a series, it's ideal to know the big book, the next book's just ready to pick up. And my pre-order landed on my Kindle last night. Alan's disappeared. It's his book launch, but hey guys, I'm here.
It's all right. Yeah, still technical glitches.
I talk to myself all the time, so it's absolutely fine. I just sit here in this room and talk to myself all night. I'm fine. And if people just keep on asking me questions, I'll just keep on talking. So I'm all right.
Yeah.
So Alan, Joe had talked there about looking forward to the blockbuster movie version. A really silly question. Would you like that to happen? Would you like the trilogy to be made into a film?
Oh, silly question. Yeah, every writer would love their book to be made into a film or a Netflix series.
If anybody from
too
Netflix
big for a film,
is watching,
isn't it?
I don't know. No, we could go on with the wind.
My number is Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but Netflix would be better. A series would cover it in more detail.
Netflix would be ideal. Anne says he's hiding from me because I mentioned Bloody Scotland. Yeah. Mention Bloody Scotland. Sorry, Anne, I missed that question. How did you decide on the names of your characters? Back. Names of your characters, Anne? Anne? Sorry, Anne asked that question about the names of your characters.
Yeah, so the names are, so I have a list of 4 names, male 4 names and female 4 names, and a list of surnames. And then I just match them up to see just one that I think suits the character. But having written about General Eric Kastner, somebody who read the books, loved the books as a beta reader, then sent me a book written by a German author called Eric Kastner, who was a significant German author, Jewish, I think. And so I've still to read the book, but I think he wrote children's books and adults' books, but I hadn't ever heard of him, and that was just pure coincidence. But there was a lot of real characters in the book as well. So the real characters, obviously, people might not know they're real, or but there's a fair smattering of them through the book. Obviously, the big ones like the higher Nazi sort of ruling party, but also some smaller people some people who weren't as well known. Probably Admiral Canaris is the big one from that point of view. And I came across him when I was doing the research, looking for a character that the general could have as a friend, and basically a companion to go through the book with, who sort of didn't agree with the Nazi Party as well. And Canaris just absolutely, he just fell into my lap, and he was so perfect for the basically written, apart from the bits where he talks to the general, and his story is just as it is.
You back? I'm not sure if you're back, so I'm going to talk and see if you can hear me. This is great. We're getting some brilliant questions and comments here. Madeline Black's here. Hi, Madeline. She says she would love to see it as a film. Joe, yeah, that's a brilliant question. So, how come a retired vet and somebody who's not Jewish got involved in the subject of the Holocaust so deeply and emotionally?
Actually, it started when I was quite young. My family were brought up religious, very strict religion, but it wasn't Jewish faith. And for instance, we had no TV, we weren't allowed the TV, and but we were allowed to read books. And I read Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank when I was probably 10 or 11. And it did have a profound effect on me. And I've read a lot about the Holocaust since then. And I think it's just, it fascinates me and appalls me in equal, it's horrifying, but I feel as if I want to know more about it. And it came from that. And when I finished writing Block, I wanted to do another book, and I to do. So I thought I'll do a book about sailing, and ended up writing a 3-volume historical fiction book, including sailing, which needed a human. I just thought it suited it, and it must have just been realizing it.
I think you're back. So, Alan, just touching on what Joe said, obviously folk now know you were a vet before you retired. So when did, and avid reader, but when did the drive to become a writer, when did that happen? Oh, Alan's gone again. I think he just wants to avoid the questions about when he was a vet. Historical fiction, yeah, I did see the historical function, Joe, but I think I obviously read it as fiction anyway. I knew what you meant. I know I've not got my glasses on as well, hence the reason I keep on peering at my screen. I should have put another light on. Alan's gone again, but he will be back. He will be back. I'm actually dying to read book 2. I'm really I know Scottish Wi-Fi, come on. It's not even in the middle of a storm or anything. There's a wee bit of rain out there and everything's just went to pot. I'm going to blame Alan's Wi-Fi because he lives next to the sea, so I reckon that's having an impact on it. And I've not started reading book 2 just now. It just landed Alan had sent me an ARC, but I bought a copy anyway. So the copy just landed in my Kindle last night. I'm reading a book at the moment. And then obviously I went to Graham McCrae Burnett's launch last night. So I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to read Alan's second book. And honestly, anybody who's on here who knows me knows that, historical fiction isn't my thing. I'm a total crime psychological thriller addict, and that's what I read constantly. And Alan, I was saying, no, I'll buy your book, and he says, yeah, but you don't need to read it. And I kept on thinking, 800 words, am I ever going to be able to read this book? I couldn't put it down, honestly. I've not read a book in such a long time that has had such an impact on me. Seriously, amazing book. And Alan isn't here, and if he can hear me, he'll be getting really big-headed, because Alan's a brilliant writer. If you haven't read any of his other books, Block, Blue Wicked, and... Oh, Block, Blue Wicked. I'm just bumming you up here, Alan, while you disappeared. I'm just telling people that they should read all your other books as well, because you are a really good writer.
I don't know what the weather's like. We've not got great weather. I don't know what it's something to do with that, but it's...
I just think it's the sea. I think it's you living next to the sea, definitely. So I was just sort of filling space there and saying, how much of a crime book junkie I am, and what an impact the book had on me. And without wanting to get you too big-headed, Alan, I was just saying that when I started reading it, I knew it was going to be good anyway, because you are a fantastic writer, an absolute fantastic writer. And Anne's saying it would be great if you got a publishing deal. Alan, you've self-published all your books so far. Would you give up the level of control that you have over that process now to go for a publishing deal, do you think?
At one point during the writing of this, I did approach a few agents, but no real interest in it. I think it really sort of frightened a lot of people just by its size and its scope. So yeah, and I'd already self-published 3 books, so I felt quite comfortable doing it. But I know it's a lot of work, and the problem is the promotional side is...
I know Alan was going to say the promotional side is difficult there in terms of sort of self-publishing, because obviously you've not got the backing of a publisher, though in saying that, even with a traditional publishing deal, authors are still expected to do a lot of their own promotion, which, if Alan comes back on, will lead me nicely into my next question. But I think Alan does quite a good job of his promotion. He's quite creative in terms of promoting his books. The first time I met Alan was at Bloody Scotland. I came out an event, and there was somebody across from the Albert Halls making wooden furniture, and I thought, that's so bizarre, absolutely so bizarre, really strange. Why is somebody at a crime book, a crime fiction weekend, making furniture? So I kind of gave him a wide berth, because I thought it was one of these strange salespeople that were going to try and sell me something. And a couple of months later, I actually found out it had been Alan doing a pop-up launch of his book, The Cabinet Maker, his first book. And that's kind of how I got to know Alan. His second book, his Blue Wicked, and then he had Block. And again, Alan, I'm just bumming you up here, telling everybody about your creative approach to publicity in terms of your books. So for The Cabinet Maker, your pop-up launch outside Bloody Scotland, with the, I keep on going to say joinery, but I think that's probably an insult. Finely handcrafted furniture. Alan's definitely frozen, so we'll just keep on talking. Hi, Timmy. It's nice to see you, Nikki. Good to see you too. And with Block, he had a pop-up cocktail bar, and myself and Noel gave him a bit of a hand with that until we realised that the cocktails were actually mocktails. So we helped out for a quick half hour and then went away to the pub. He's gone again. Guys, I know you never tuned in to see me. I'm really sorry. You're kind of stuck with me at the moment. We'll see. We'll see if he gets back. We'll see if he gets back. You back?
I'm back, but for how long I don't know. We're having real hassles.
I know. I've just been telling everybody about how creative you are in terms of your publicity, and telling them about your pop-up launches at Bloody Scotland. And it kind of just before you froze and went off, and you were talking about sort of publicity and getting that awareness about your books out there. And it feeds a wee bit into what you were saying before about feedback from people. So probably a lot of people watching, or maybe some folk watching, will read a book and enjoy the book, and that's great, and they'll put it down. What should people be doing after they read a book, Alan, if they really enjoyed it? What should people be doing with that information?
Well, I presume you're having a wee hand and telling everybody about it.
Yes, but what do you want readers to do? What do you want readers to do after they've read your book?
Well, preferably buy the next one, which would be nice.
Leave a review.
I know, but leave reviews. Yeah, I mean, especially for indie authors, but really for every author, reviews are very, very important, because Amazon treat you differently if your book has had a lot of reviews, and potential readers treat you differently if
Alan's going to say, I'm mind reading here now. Alan's going to say potential readers treat you differently if they go onto Amazon, and not saying all 5-star reviews, but a good mix, and even if somebody doesn't enjoy a book, as long as it's not a personal attack, but a good constructive review can be a sort of make or break for especially indie authors in terms of getting new readers. And I don't know how many folk, well, most folk here will be on Facebook book groups, and that buzz that readers, bloggers, anybody, he's gone again. I think we'll probably end up giving up here, because there ain't nobody come on here to listen to me. But thank you, Joe, that you're enjoying listening to me. I hope my dulcet Glasgow tones aren't too hard to understand. But I'll make that plea for Alan. If you've read his book, please go on to Amazon and leave a review. It doesn't need to be a big lengthy review. It doesn't need to be an essay, but a few lines saying what you enjoyed and why people should buy it. Go onto the Facebook groups, shout about the book. I'm instructing everybody to go straight onto Amazon and leave reviews for your books. To go onto Facebook groups.
It's a lovely thing to do, and for an author, it is. I can't stress how important it is. The reviews, and also just talking about it to friends, other people who read book groups, whether they be in your local library or on Facebook. I rely 100% on word of mouth. There's no budget for promotional. There's no TV adverts. There's no newspaper adverts. There's no big fancy lunches.
No railway adverts. Rail station adverts.
No train station adverts. No, so especially small people who write for small publishers or self-publish do rely very much on just readers' enthusiasm for the books, and that is the books live or die by that. So it's please leave reviews. But I know it's not easy for everyone. Everyone doesn't like reading reviews, and it maybe doesn't become it's not comfortable for them to do that, and I can understand that. That's absolutely fine. But even 2 or 3 words, loved the book, or didn't like this, or even a bad review, it doesn't matter. If you can read that, you can leave a review that's maybe, the book was okay, but I didn't like this about it. That's fine, because reviews tell readers what to expect, and it's fine. Just want honest reviews. You don't want people to say things that aren't right. Just say what you feel about the book, even if it's in 3 words.
Yeah. Nikki's asking if you've used Amazon advertising console. Have you used Amazon advertising?
No, I have used. I've never really heard of it, to be honest.
I
did try Facebook advertising with the last book, and not really much success, to be honest. So I've kind of, given that a
lost
miss.
in the void, I think, in Facebook.
They do get. I think you get lost in the void. Yeah.
I
haven't.
I think you're right. The best advert is people talking about it. Even if you don't want to leave a review on Amazon, go onto a Facebook group if you're part of one, and just say, read this book, loved it, and people always join in and ask questions about why you loved it, and that's what creates the interest, and that's what creates the buzz. So
I know when and from my reading, I really, when people talk about books and you get the enthusiasm that's coming across, you say, oh God, I want to read that, and it just maybe they mention something about the book and you think, oh, right, I'm going to have to buy that book, because it's really, it's just something about it, something about their enthusiasm about it makes you, and I've read a lot of books over the years I probably wouldn't have read, just because somebody that I know has recommended them, and it's turned out, discovered a new author. It's fantastic.
I know. Same here. Right, where we've still got you. What's next? What are you working on now? Out with your edits for book 3. What's your next project?
Right, my next project will probably not be book related, because my long-suffering better half has put up with me disappearing into my book hole for 5 years, and I've got a list of jobs as long as my arm to be thinking about doing in the house and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to take a wee while and do some, DIY and some furniture stuff and just bits and pieces.
He's actually not. He's actually going on holiday. He's away sailing around Croatia on Sunday. So don't listen to him. Mary, if you're there in the background, I feel your pain. Lock him in and get him to do that DIY.
This was long organised before COVID, and it's been cancelled. We're finally getting. And there's a funny wee story about it as well, because it's a bunch of vets, old vets. We're all retired now, apart from one guy still does a little bit. And we've been gone sailing for years in our own boats, but we sometimes charter other boats in the Med and stuff like that. And but we did get together. There was a veterinary charity that vets have a very high rate of alcoholism and drug use because of they say the stress, but it could be something like that. And there was a charity who did try and raise money to give mental health support to vets who were maybe taking some of the medicines are meant for their animals and stuff like that. So we decided as a group to write a small book about veterinary tips, just to make the job easier for young vets coming in, because a lot of young vets, there's been quite a high suicide rate among young vets when they leave university and get into practice. And so we did a little tips book just to raise money for the charity, but And in the end, this little tip book actually proved to be quite useful, and they gave it in PDF form to every new graduate for a few years,
Oh, wow.
just to help them, a little bit of help towards, them settling in and not getting too stressed about things. So it was like de-stressing tips for new vets. So, and we did that on the sailing boat, and so we've not been for quite a few years because of COVID. So this is us going to do that. So
Yeah. Off you go, off you go. We've
yeah,
got Ian Skewis, your lovely editor. Ian's been working on editing the books. He's popped in to say hello. Carol Hopkins is here. She was watching on her phone. It was too glitchy. Carol, I don't think it was your phone. I think we've just had a glitchy evening. Anne Miller says...
Well, it might be because Carol is Ayrshire. Maybe the whole of Ayrshire is just out. Maybe the connection between Glasgow or Kirkintilloch and Ayrshire is just rubbish, because I've actually gone on to I should have probably done it before, I've gone into my iPhone hotspot, so I'm now on 4G, and it's actually better than the fast fibre that we're supposed to be getting.
There you go, yeah. Anne Miller says if you've got jobs to do or sailing, you can start listening to Audible books again.
Yes.
Yeah.
That will be good. And I've actually got a pile of Audible books ready to listen to, some of which were Anne's recommendations on the Audible group. So yeah, that will be good.
I'm looking
forward to it.
Fantastic promoter for Audible books.
Yes.
Every time I see her, I don't listen to books. I really struggle to take in a book. But she's always on at me. She's always, championing the cause of Audible books. What are you reading just now then, Alan? Now that you're not writing and you're still editing, are you able to read something else while you're editing?
I'm not at the moment. I did read one book. It's called The Lucky 13, and I don't know if you remember me going on about a book. Now, what were the Headscarf Revolutionaries? It was about. I reviewed it probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and on the book groups. It was about a group of fish wives, so women who worked in the fish trade in Hull, who campaigned for better safety after 3 trawlers had sunk in the Arctic, losing a lot of fishermen. And this woman was very much larger than life, and she campaigned for, it's called the Headscarf Revolutionaries, and she campaigned, and the whole fishing industry was changed because of her campaign. But this is a kind of secondary story to it, and it's a story about one of the trawlers that sank, and it's called the Lucky 13 because 13 guys survived from it. So that was it, and it was a bit of I didn't feel I was kind of ready for fiction, so I thought that'd be a nice book just to start reading again with. And it took me about 3 weeks, which is a long time for me to read a book, but I just did a little bit here and there. So I've not yet to write my review for it, but
is it yes. Do you find it difficult to read something else while you're in the process then of writing?
Absolutely. I stopped reading because the characters were just so much in my mind, and the story was just, my mind was just full of it, and I couldn't really think of anything else. So yeah, I stopped reading, which is the longest time I've not read since I've been probably learned to read, which was it felt a bit strange, but at the same time, I just was so focused that I just discounted it. I just said, right, fair enough. But I will go back to reading. I've got a TBR because I've been getting all these recommendations from people in the meantime and buying them. So I've got about 300 books to read. So I don't know when I'll get around to reading them all. But
you better do your jobs first before you start reading. That's what I'm saying.
I think I better. Yes, that'd be a good idea.
Better. Right, I've got one last question. So your other books were all standalones. This one was a trilogy. Yeah. How different did that feel? And do you like do you prefer a standalone, or do you think when you're ready to start writing again that you're going to look at a trilogy or a series?
I didn't really intend it as I said. I intended it as one book and it expanded to three. I don't think I would set out to write another trilogy. It's just such a long time. You know, I don't know if I would have the stamina to do it again. If I'd known at the start how long it was going to be, would I have written it? I don't know. But it kind of just it grew and grew and grew, and by the time I realised it was going to be a trilogy and it was going to take me a long time, I was too far in to turn back. So I don't think I would.
How many words in total have we got in the trilogy, Alan? Go and
I
tell
don't
folk.
think you really want to know because it might put folk off. I think there's 1.1 million words in the trilogy.
I can't imagine writing 1.1 million words, honestly. Writing 90,000 words is hard enough.
But if you think about it, it's about probably 13 or 14 crime stories.
But you've done that in 5 years.
People do binge read series crime stories, and and it's actually the same length as all the Harry Potter books as well.
Yeah.
So,
but then if you look at that, as crime books, then you've written 14 books in 5 years.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but you didn't have to come up with the concept for each one.
Yeah.
Whereas if you write 13 books, you do have to come up with a concept for each book, whereas this book had one concept.
Yeah.
But probably the research was a lot more than you would do for a crime story, to be honest.
But anybody, if you're put off by that length, by 800 pages or 1.1 million words, please don't be put off by it, because honestly, it doesn't feel like you're reading 800 pages. It honestly doesn't. I actually thought it'd take me weeks to read it, but I read it in less than a week. And I would have probably read it quicker, but my reading has really slowed down recently, so I read it in less than a week because it's just that terrible word, unputdownable. Madeline, oh, that's lovely. Madeline's saying she just wants to say a huge thank you again to you, Alan, for writing this story. As a second generation of a Holocaust survivor, it's so touching that someone not Jewish would write this.
Yeah, Madeline has been absolutely brilliant support. I might have it here. She sent me a little. When I contacted Madeline. Madeline we have been friends since I wrote Block, and she brought out her book Unbroken, which is an incredible book as well. Nothing to do with the Holocaust, but everyone should read it. I contacted her because I knew she was Jewish, and just to ask her a few questions quite early on in the book. And she sent me a little book, a little Yiddish dictionary, Yiddish to English dictionary, which was really helpful just to, because I do try and get a bit of the language into the books, so a bit of German, a bit of Yiddish. And this book, The Flight of the Shearwater, there's a little bit of Danish as well. Just enough to give a flavour, but and the Yiddish language is absolutely amazing, because you'd be amazed how many slang words we use in English today that come from Yiddish. It's just, there's some great expressions in Yiddish that and so they just give the flavour of the book. But Madeline just sent the book to me. It appeared in the post, and I thought, oh, she's just a gem.
Oh, she is a gem. I've probably known Madeline for about as the same length of time as you, Alan, and she's one of the good guys. Really,
definitely,
really
great podcast
person
as well.
Yes, excellent podcast. Okay, so it's publication day for Alan. It's publication day for Flight of the Shearwater, and if you haven't already bought it, you can head over to the Big River Zone and click and buy now. And buy the other one as well. Buy book 1 if you haven't read book 1. Buy book 2 so that you've got it waiting to read it as soon as you've finished the first one. And thanks very much for inviting me along. Guys, I'm sorry about all the technical difficulties. I'm sorry about being left with me so often. It's kind of funny, normally at a party, if folk were left with me, they would just sort of hover out the door and disappear. I kind of felt as if I had a captive audience here. It's great.
No, but thanks
So,
everyone for coming, and I do apologise for the technical glitches. We had absolute nightmare tonight, and it's brilliant that you've all stuck with us.
thank you.
And thanks to everyone that's left a review, everyone who's messaged me and emailed me about feedback, just saying, it really does make it all the effort worthwhile. And Sharon, thank you very much for doing this again. It's been a hard night for you with all these technical problems, but you've kept the show rolling pretty well. And of course, you've got your own book launch next week, which is
next Friday. Yeah,
I'm going to miss.
I know. I can't believe it. I cannot believe you're not going to be at my book launch.
I know, but
I'm just not going to talk to you again.
I do apologize. So hopefully you can stream that, and maybe it will be slightly more technologically gifted than this was. So
I don't know. You'll be out in an ocean in Croatia somewhere. You're not going to be able to see it. So
yeah.
But anyway,
I'll try my best.
Thanks, everyone.
So thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thanks for the great questions as well. Catch us all later. Bye.